Okay, now we have what we call refresh starter, stiff starter refreshed, or freshly fed. You need to keep some for making bread next week or next time. Okay, you're gonna need for one recipe of bread, 1 pound loaf of my sourdough bread, you need 100 grams of starter. So please save a minimum of 100 grams of starter. Let's zero the scale and let's see how much we have now. We should have okay, we have 785 grams. That's quite a lot. This is too much to save because they will double in size, and you don't really want to keep increasing your container size. So I'm just going to keep 100 grams. It should be 1/8 of that. Taking that into account. I will just save 100 grams. Again, a little bit of water on your hands or on your spatula will make things less sticky. Oh, 165 grams. I'm gonna save 200 grams then. There you go. 200 grams. Okay. So this is 200 grams of freshly fed starter that will be saved back in the refrigerator for future bread. And again, it's good to keep it in the fridge for a week or up to a month. There you go, 200 grams. Back in the fridge. Now let's make some bread. The basic recipe is 100 grams of stiff starter, freshly fed, or actually you can use old starter too. It's just that it will take longer to rise. 100 grams of stiff starter, 420 grams of bread flour, 250 grams of water, and 6 grams of salt. Basically, is 100 grams of stiff starter, then about a pound of flour and half a pound of water and a teaspoon of salt. You can use 2 teaspoons of salt, which makes it bread tastier, but I just train my palate to just as little as 1 teaspoon of salt. Okay, so we have, how much starter do we have? I think we have enough to make a giant bread, and we could, let's see, we have 600 grams of starter. That means I can make, I'm gonna make oh, that's a lot of flour. That means that's enough for 6 pounds of bread. That's a lot. That's too much. Okay, my recipe is very flexible. You could replace some of the fresh flour and water with starter. Starter is basically one part of flour and half part of water. So instead of just using 100 grams of flour of starter, 420 grams of bread flour and 250 grams of water, I'm going to use a lot more starter and subtract it from bread flour. So keeping the idea of two parts, one part of starter and one part of flour and half part of water, I'm going to make a bread using 600 grams of starter, 600 grams of flour, and 100 grams of water. Okay, so 600 grams of starter, 600 grams of flour, and 300 grams of water. What will happen is the bread will be a little bit more sour and it will rise quicker. So it is very, very flexible, because one of the questions that everybody asks is what to do with all the extra starter. Well, just make it into the bread. So what I need now is 300 grams of flour, that is 50%, and I will replace 20% of that flour with whole wheat. Yeah? So you can tell everybody you're making whole wheat sourdough bread, which I love. So for 600 grams of starter, you need 600 grams of flour, and 20% of that as whole wheat is let's see, 10% is 60 grams. So 20% is 120 grams. Yeah, 60 grams of flour. So we're going to measure 120 grams of wheat berries. So again, my whole wheat bread is always 20% whole wheat. There's no such thing as 100% whole wheat bread. If you read carefully the labels of all whole wheat breads that you buy, they just contain a fraction of whole wheat flour. So I'm going to use 20%. You can use more, or you can use less. In this case, it will be less, because remember, we have 600 grams of stiff starter, which is all made with plain white flour, and half of it, additional 600 grams of flour, will have only 20% of whole wheat. Anyway, so 120 grams of whole wheat flour, now I need 600 minus 120,